Welcome to Do Good Now, the series where we explore the many ways Terps are doing good on campus, in their community, and around the world. As the nation's first Do Good campus, the University of Maryland is leading the way in experiential learning and social impact. My name is James Stillwell. I'm the faculty director of our Do Good campus, and today we'll hear the story of one changemaker who's putting those values into action. Clyde Moore, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Thank
Good
you
to
for
have
having
you.
me, James. I
Thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much. I see you in the hallways all the time. I
Right,
figure it's
right.
time to sit down for a chat.
I'm humbled and honored.
So Clyde, tell us, how do you do good here at UMD?
Well, how do I do good here? I think I would say have to start with, my major role and responsibility here within the School of Public Policy. I serve as the senior mentor to our public administrations program. And so for me, doing good is pouring into our wonderful graduate students in our program. So let me just talk a little bit about this program. So this program is relatively new. It wasn't here. The overall scope is I was able to, I'll talk about it a little later about how I envision this or where the passion or where the conviction, where did it come from. But the overall purpose is to partner with our graduate students within the public administration program primarily. It's volunteer. They don't have to participate. The overall goal is to help them get through the rigors of elite graduate program because life, the winds of life doesn't stop, once you decide to go back to school. Life doesn't say, I'm going to leave you alone during your academic journey. So that was the original focus, to help them get through the rigors. And some of it's academic, some of it's professional, and some can be as well as personal. And I don't try to overlap and get into anybody else's lane. The health center does that part. But over time, I began to realize a little deeper, right? I began to change the focus in the vision of the program, and the overall scope and the vision of the program is, like I said, partner with students and to be able to assess and flesh out their story, flush and assess their strengths and their weaknesses, and their passion and their interests as it relates to policy. And if we can get all those things laid on the table, right? My goal is to get them to be empowered, inspired, and see that, and match their professional aspirations with their passions, their gifts, and their talents. Because I've come to realize in life that it's not what you do, but how you do it. But there's a lot of times that we are always looking for employment to do good for ourselves, our families, and so forth. But I come to realize, well, what if we can slow this thing down and get people to match their professional aspirations with their gifts? Because I feel in my life journey, I've come to realize if you partner with people and pull up beside them, we go out on the Baltimore Avenue and start asking questions about what is the job that you really do? And then we say, well, what are you most passionate about? The question is, how would the percentage of people would actually match? So my job is to slow this down and have an opportunity to partner with the students and get them to get into the area that they would most passionate about, because I believe that's where you're going to excel the most, moving in your niche, your passions and your interests and your gifts. The last thing I want to talk about that is the story. People may say, well, why do you want to know about the story? Because this is how I'm wired. We're human beings. Don't matter what you do. Leadership is the ability to be able to influence people, to motivate, inspire them to accomplish a mission, but they're not tools. They're human beings. And so when it comes to the story, I try to convey to students the importance of their story, because your story is unique. It's important. It's valuable. It's like precious gold, right? But it also, if you assess and lean into your story, a lot of times our stories inform us of our passions, our interests, and so forth and so on. And then as it relates to the professional endeavors, sometimes when they're interviewing, not all parts of their story may be applicable to the jobs that they're applying for. So I try to mesh all this together and talk about the importance of it. And I guess and some of the other things that we'll do, and we do talk about in the program, is really or should I say the end product is to be able to inspire, motivate them. And I would say, get them to see their worth and their value and their gifts within them. And that in itself is very empowering, of seeing their worth and their value. And then by some along the lines also, as our motto is, is get them to see their gift and values of how they can use those right attributes and those gifts and talents to help have a positive impact on the world.
Wow. That's the hallmark of a great mentor, bringing the strengths out of the mentee so that they can go
Right.
out and apply them further. I love that. Well, that makes me wonder what first sparked your own passion for
Right.
doing this kind of work.
Well, that's a great question. It's funny because my wife I used to always say that, I want to coach and pour back into people, coach and mentor. But I think it ties what I kind of like, one of the things that I flush out in the program and talk about, who you are is who you are. And what I begin to realize is a lot of times there's a lot of inherent gifts inside of us, right? There's inherent gifts and inherent talents. There's even interest and passion buried inside of us. It may not be revealed in a certain season, but like extravating, you dig and it reveals itself in certain times. So to answer that question, I've kind of like all my life, I've had this passion to serve, right? Even I'm talking 4 or 5 years old, I had a passion to serve. And at the time I felt that, I'm going to serve my country and I'm going to be an officer. I was a kid and I used to always say this, right?
Wow.
That I was going to be an officer in the military. So I saw that at that time as a way to serve and use my gifts and talents. So this passion of service was always resonating with me, even as a child. And then, my career I was in for 30 years. And then without getting into the long story, but I finally was able to, because I originally was communications officer, but I eventually transitioned because communication is very important, but it wasn't resonating with me. I never asked myself, what is it that I am most passionate about, like I'm trying to teach my students? By asking myself that and by trying to assess that, I realized I transitioned over to Special Forces, the Green Berets, because you may say, well, why a Green Beret? The Green Berets, they have many missions, but one of their primary missions, they're teachers. And our motto is Deo Presso Liber, which is a Latin expression which means to liberate the oppressed. Liberate the oppressed. So it's always about, to me, I saw that as a vehicle and an organization, not only to serve, but it was a greater good to help those that were in oppressive situations. And our job was to work with some of our allies and build their capability so they can take care of problems in their own backyard to remain free. And so that's really inspired me. It to me is commensurate with who I am and how I was raised. Now, bringing this all the way back, I'll fast forward in 9/11. I'm sorry to give you this long story,
No,
but
I love
I
it.
want to talk about how I got here and how this was inspired. I think 9/11 really, unbeknownst to me, began to spark a significant passion inside of me for policy, and unbeknownst to me at the time, because I felt that we did a lot of things right, but then I thought we did begin to do a lot of things wrong. And at the time, I was really getting passionate about policy, really convicted about policy, and I didn't even realize what was going on in me. Fast forward, many years later, as I'm getting to closer to the end of my career, and I'm home now, and I'm in the States, but now I'm beginning to see a lot of issues and disparities as it relates to healthcare, education, community policing. So now I'm not only passionate about foreign policy, I'm beginning to be passionate about domestic policy. So I get to the end of my career, as crystal clear as that may sound now, I forgot all about it. I was at these job fairs and none of it was calling out to me. And then I backed away from a lot of job fairs, and in doing so, I had the clarity, and I realized everything that I just said, that I'm very passionate about policy. And I came back to school here in School of Public Policy, came back to school, but I came here at the School of Public Policy, and I had my master's in public management. It was in that, sorry for that long story, but it was in that.
I love these stories of you lived the experience and then applied it, and it wasn't like it was a straight line, smooth sailing. You knew exactly what was going to happen next. It was sort of more of a jagged line, and you learned along the way.
Exactly. And it was in the program when I became a student is when I would say that I had the vision and the passion and the conviction to realize innovatively that we need a mentorship program. And so ironically, it was through me being a student that I realized the need for a mentorship program. And I graduated in 2018, and I was advocating for a mentorship program. And the other thing that I didn't talk about is an academic engagement program with the government, because we're here in the DMV. So that's what really sparked that story. It wasn't one thing overnight. The passion and the service fueled it. And then the experience of being a student here in School of Public Policy gave me the realization of we really need to have a mentorship program. And years later, we were able to develop the program with the support of the Office of Executive Programs.
Wow. Well, on a related note, how, you may have answered this already, feel free to elaborate, how your classroom and real-world engagement have shaped your understanding of what it means to do good.
Oh, that's a great question. I would answer that like in two parts, as far as real-world engagement, which I tie into, to life. First I would just say, just growing up, right? As I talked about a passion to serve, I think, at the time I didn't necessarily appreciate or understand. One of the things my father used to do, and we used to have family rides, and my mom and dad, they would take us on family rides. It's one thing to go to beautiful parts of the city, go see this, go see the beach. But believe it or not, brace yourself, they would sometimes load us up in the car and they would take us to communities that were, economically disadvantaged, and there was some depravity there. And it was a very profound impact on me as a young child. And I think their wise message was, number one, there's a couple of things that I got out of it, that there's a lot of hurt and there's a lot of need out there. And regardless of your circumstances, you have to be empathetic and considerate of others and how they are living and their needs and so forth. So another thing, it was a spirit of gratitude, right? Gratitude of when you see others that are suffering and living worse than you, it gives you a great sense of appreciation of what you have. So I think that birthed within me a spirit of, that was already maybe there, but they nurtured it. And I think it birthed within me a spirit of service and a spirit of giving back, and a spirit of seeing people and respecting people regardless of who they are, regardless of their titles and so forth, to see the humanity. And having said that, that transitions to my adult life and all my experiences, and definitely in traveling all over the world in the military. And I've been to a lot of places. And one of the things that always resonates with me, no matter where I go, people are just people, and they're wonderful. And I remember during the war, no offense there, President Bush, but I remember he had the coin of the expression of axis of evil, Syria, Iran, and I think it was Korea. And I remember I was in the Middle East for 5 years. And in that capacity, I traveled a lot of different places. And I remember going to Syria because I had to link up with the American embassy, and I met so many wonderful Syrians. And then in Doha, Qatar, where my family and I lived for 5 years, they have so many expats, and there's so many Iranians. And some of the Iranians were some of our greatest friends, and they were wonderful people, and they just love our country, and they love Americans. Matter of fact, their spirit, their personality, and how they engage in life was basically like Americans, right? And so it gave me such a wake-up call, speaking about engagement, of people are people, and more importantly, humanity. We're all connected to each other, and it's easy to put identifiers on people, but you have to get to know people for yourself. So I think that emboldens and passions me even more to lean in and give back and pour into people and seeing the humanity in people.
Well, as someone who passes you in the hall every day, Clyde, I can see that you walk the talk very much. I mean, you embody and live these values and this experience.
Well, thank you.
It radiates outward, and we need more of it. We need all of it we can get.
Hey,
so
thank you.
I love hearing how you came to appreciate all that. So UMD is the nation's first do-good campus. What does that mean to you personally?
Wow. I think that means a lot. I mean, I can think of the parallel that I think about is, there's a lot of things that all of us can decide what we want to do and how we want to use our gifts and our talents and who we want to partner with. Just like I told you my story about, I always had a passion to serve. albeit not perfect. You know, I love the government. I love serving my country, and I love that time period, and I love you know, the Department of Defense. Even though everybody, as long as there's human, there's nothing that's perfect, right? But what the government and what the Department of Defense actually stands for, I'll say it that way, what it should stand for, is a force for good. And I was proud to be a part of an organization that was ethically based, selfless service, placed the country above oneself, given of oneself, and being tethered to the Constitution, the rule of law. That's just the spirit of constant sacrifice and giving. So when I think of the school here at School of Public Policy, and I think of the university taking on this do good mantra, like, I mean, to me, that's like totally awesome, because it's reminiscent of what I just said, to be a part of an organization that is value-based, that wants to partner with students, right? You're literally almost doing what I'm doing in the mentorship program, flush out people's skills and talents and empower them and create a space for them to use those gifts and talents to do good. Right. So to be a part of an organization like that reflects my values, my passions, and how I was raised, I feel humbled and I feel honored and I feel so proud to be here. I tell my wife that I'm in the right place at the right time. Yeah. So as you can hear what's coming out of me, I feel very good about it.
That's great.
And I'm very proud to be a part of the organization.
That's great. You know, Clyde, I have to ask, with all these stories of, you know, how you came to appreciate these values and live them in your own life, you must have had at least one, if not many, mentors along the way that you really learned from and look up to.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as much as I smile when I hear the expression of "fool yourself up by your bootstraps," you know, nobody makes it on their own. That's my belief. That's my life, my lived life experience, and so forth. I think we grow in community the same way a plant goes into the ground or a seed goes into the ground. Without that soil, it doesn't germinate. It doesn't grow, right?
Yeah.
So I think people in community is like the soil, right? And how much more mentors are part of that. So I've had numerous mentors within my life, from professional to personal. Not, I mean, how much more my mom and my dad and my brothers and sisters. Out of 8 family members, 8 brothers. I mean, 5 sisters and 2 brothers, and I was the youngest. Well, I had mentors from a humor perspective. I always tell them, they mentored me and they didn't even realize it. A lot of good ways they mentored me. One of the ways they mentored me, I paid attention and say, I know not to do that. I know not to do that.
That's bet I'm also the youngest.
Yeah, I'm the youngest, so I get to see. But I've had, you know, from my sisters and brothers to my parents and to family members, and then on the professional side, many people that poured into me. And I would tell young people too, sometimes there's this informal and informal mentorships, partnership. But one of the things I'm big on just paying attention, right? So sometimes you're having mentors without even being formalized, because I'm assessing what maybe right looks like as it relates to leadership. So that person's mentoring me by their behavior. So you get to have a wide range of mentors that way, because I look at it as, I call it the buffet of life. So I'm always looking at the different examples of different things, or whatever the case may be, and pulling it from the and learning.
I like that.
From here, a little bit from here, a little bit from here. I know what not to do that. So it's, yes, to answer your question, I've had many mentors, formally and informal.
Wow. What advice would you give other Terps who want to start their own do-good journey?
That's a great question. While there's a lot of things that comes to mind, I think what comes to me is kind of like, is reminiscent of my story. So I probably would tell the other Terps to, number one, value their own voice, right? Because a lot of times, you know, like whether it's oil, things are bubbling out of us, right? I hate to sound, you know, metaphorically, but there's interest and there's passions and there's ideas that bubble sometimes from within us to address, as we say, pressing challenges or whatever the issue may be. But sometimes I've learned that we're not as sensitive to our own voice, to those promptings, to those things that are bubbling up inside of us, and we don't create space for it to breathe and get air and be able to, you know, realize what's really there. So I would say the first thing is to slow down and to listen and to embrace that voice of what's calling out to you. And then that what's calling out to you becomes like a compass, a little bit of military, a compass, right?
Yeah.
That guides you to direction where you need to be. Because think about it, my journey, and I never knew that I was going to be here coming back to School of Public Policy.
Right,
And you know, with what I said earlier, without repeating that, and that led to the program of being developed. So brace your own voice and what's coming out of you. Let that be your compass, because that's going to move you into the area where I think where you ought to be. Because when you get into that area, the last thing I would say, the other thing I come to realize, when you get into that area, sometimes we get confused that we think, well, I'm in the area, but sometimes the area may not be what you envision it to be. The question is, how do you use your gifts, your talents, either to amend, adjust, or create? As the mentorship program, it was calling out to me to mentor, but it wasn't there.
Yeah.
So I literally learned, and I tell my family this and others, one of the biggest things that I learned is sometimes what's calling out to you, you have to use what's calling out to you and create what's calling out to you.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say.
I love that. What has been the most surprising or rewarding moment in your Do Good journey so far?
Well, there's a lot of things, but I want to keep on the example since we're talking about the mentorship program as the example. I think what's so rewarding when you're partnering, you know, with students and human beings in general, and coaching and mentoring and pouring into people. To me, what's so rewarding is because we all have blind spots. So in this partnership, if I'm seeing and assessing these wonderful strengths in a student, and they may not particularly see it themselves, I think it's rewarding when they start to see their strengths, start to embrace their strengths, and they start walking in their strengths. And you see that inspiration of confidence comes, and they begin to transform and actually like filling out the shoes that you've always seen that they had the capacity for. I think that's so rewarding to see people be able to live in their full potential or begin to live in that potential. So I think that's what fuels me and inspires me and encourages me. And I think that's what I'm excited about in the program. It's never a dull moment.
I think I know the answer to the next question based on what you just said. Who or what inspires you to keep pushing forward in this work?
Well, I think that's a good question. I mean, I would answer it in two ways. Obviously, the end product, what I just said, is the customer, the partner of seeing that, the student. But I'll come to that last. But I think what fuels me is going back to how I was raised, of service and giving back, and that passion. Or I would say it's almost like a God-given inherent, because some things are inside of us. No one, you know, where did that come from? It's almost God-given, an inherent passion to serve. I think what fuels me, I think my faith fuels me, of treating people with dignity and respect, and seeing the humanity in people and that power, and how we should treat others the way we want to be treated. And if you've done it to the least of these, you've done it unto me. Another part of my faith is someone very powerful once said that, Jesus once says that I come to serve, not to be served. So, and I come to liberate the oppressed. I'm not trying to invoke and convert you, but what I am saying are those principles are very powerful, and it relates to policy, or what we do, of putting together policies and empowering young people and mentoring them so they can have a seat at the table, can use their voice and their gifts and their talents, raise their hand and let their voice be heard to address the issues that we most care about, or that needs to be addressed to do good for our society, the world at large. And so that's, I think, what fuels me, is what I just said, my upbringing in my faith, and what inspires me to keep going is the end product of what I see.
Very well put. Well, gosh, you inspire me, Clyde. I feel like I could go on with so many more questions about your background and your
Right.
story and how you came to be where you are now. But I'm going to shift gears a little bit and ask some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
These are a little more lighthearted and fun, quick paced.
Sure.
What is your favorite food spot on campus?
And I am an eater.
Mm.
My favorite food spot would have to be the student student center
Yeah.
stamp.
Yeah.
And if you're asking me for my favorite, it'd be Chick-fil-A.
Okay, that came up earlier. Yeah. Nice. What is your favorite spot on campus to study or work?
Study or work. To be honest, I think this building is awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
And so my favorite spot here, obviously, it would probably be my office that I decorated recently.
Yeah, right.
But also 2201 and 22 Alpha because of the view
Right.
of this beautiful field. And I used to be in the band. I love it in the fall. The band's out there. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think this side of the building, I think we're in a good part of the
We are.
neighborhood.
Yeah, we're very lucky.
Right.
What's a favorite class you've ever taken or taught here or
Um,
elsewhere?
Wow. So I would just go back. I had many favorite classes that I took, but I would go back when I came back to school here, right?
Okay. Yeah.
There was three that came to mind, management across sectors. Dr. Duke taught that one. It was awesome. And then negotiations class was absolutely brilliant. Speaking of current events, negotiations, Professor Friddle. But the one, all of them equally, but I want to say about the one policy 711, I think it's public management and leadership, that really resonate with me at the time, and all of them do, but really resonate with me and resonated even still because it goes into our conversation. What are the things that I got out of that? Rather it was one of the objectives. One of the things that I got out of this course, it was so powerful. It talked about the ability to be able to lead and manage in the public, sector, and you're moving in the public sector for the public good. But one of the things that the tenets was so powerful is talking about the basic obligation to service for federal government employees. And if you think for such a time as this, you think about the ability to be able to do good, use your gifts and your talents, and it's all about selfless service is what that course was talking about when it comes to federal government employees. And the basic obligation of service is basically all government officials have a responsibility, and they should be tethered to the Constitution, the rule of law, ethics, and their values, right? And they should use their gifts and their resources not to enrich themselves, but to the furtherance of public good for others. And that ties into everything that we're talking about right now. So I thought that really resonated with me in that course. It really inspired me, and it gave me. I think just a confirmation of my service in life, because that's what I was doing through 30 years in the military. And I think that's the vision and the goal where we should be.
Clyde, what's one UMD tradition everyone should try at least once?
I don't know if you call it a tradition, but there's two things that come to mind.
Oh, okay.
Since I love sports,
Yeah.
you got to go to a sporting game.
Okay.
I mean, speaking of community, camaraderie, having fun, and I think a sporting event is just awesome.
What's your favorite UMD sport to
My
watch?
favorite is football.
Okay.
Every year I go to at least, a friend of mine, we go to at least one or two football games. And I love the camaraderie, the community, and the food.
Yes.
And a nice beer.
Good segue. Yes. Crab cakes or Old Bay fries for you, Clyde?
I like both, but I have to go with the Old Bay fries.
Okay, very good. What is your favorite season to be on campus? Fall, spring, summer, or winter?
I'm a fall guy.
Yeah.
I love the fall.
Right.
Yeah, I love the terrain and the season, the weather, even the bands out there.
Yes.
I love the fall.
And last question, if you had to describe the University of Maryland in 3 words, what would you say?
When I thought about this, the words that came to mind is almost a phrase.
Okay.
Place to excel.
Oh.
Place to excel. It
I
goes
like
back
that.
to the soil, right? I think the School of Public Policy and the university, I brag about it. I tell my wife, I tell others about it. I just really am impressed about the environment and the atmosphere and the values of what this organization really stands for. And I'm big on, from a leadership perspective, one of the most important things of any organization is culture and environment.
Yeah.
Here, I think we produce such an environment
I
where
agree.
you can say a lot of things. We could say do good, but it's not only our words, it's our actions.
Yeah.
And the atmosphere here, it matches that. And I think people really feel that. We give them space to actually roll up their sleeves to do good. And I love it, the campus and the School of Public Policy, for that reason.
You're a living, breathing example of that, Clyde. Thanks for being part of our Do Good campus community. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow us on social media, subscribe to our newsletter, visit Do Good Plaza here at the University of Maryland, and consider making a gift to support more change makers like Clyde. Together, let's keep the movement going, and remember to do good now. Thank you so much, Clyde.
Hey, thank you, James. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for all you do.
Hey,
Yes.
thank you. Appreciate it.
Yay, we did it.
Oh, wow.